Hello, and welcome. My name is Raymond, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Nomadic Horizon Adventures. Here we go. Have a video today, but do I? So now we're anyways, say yes. Let's rewind this. So here recently, a YouTuber that I was watching, Bunny and Beyond Van Life. You should check her out. Let her know that I sent you. And I watch her. Realistic, raw, fantastic YouTube van life channel. If you're thinking about getting into life, or you're already in life and you're trying to find something new, if you haven't already seen her, go check her out. She's raw, she's real. She had some things happen where she's been running into law enforcement a little more than the average nomad does. And I'm going to let you watch her channel and get into all that. This is really dirty. Is this dirt? Is that what this is? No, is that a reflective? So, but anyways, the point being is I'm scatterbrained. But yeah, go and check her out. Great channel. Today's video is kind of inspired by her, but it's also not, because I've been meaning to talk about this. So let's get into it. So finally, after I run my mouth and we get into the topic, from my own personal experience, I have ran into law enforcement several times. I had a van back in the day. It was a 2001 Ford Econoline 350. It was a high top, fantastic van. Should have never gotten rid of it, but I did, and I ended up living in an SUV for the past 5 years. During that time, I've ran into law enforcement, and this is just my own experience. So if you're going, if you're watching this and you're like, but Raymond, it was like, let me say my piece, and I would love to hear about your experience in the comment section below. When it comes to living nomad life, van life, RV life, there are some factors that come into play. First and foremost is the rig that you have. The more of a rig that you have that is big, that stands out, you're probably going to get noticed. Also, age of your vehicle and the condition of your vehicle are factors in this. So, for example, if you have a big, super, really nice RV, unfortunately, I do have to say that you probably won't be bothered, because in today's society, if it's nice and it's clean and it, whatever, they don't assume there's anything wrong with individuals, or that they've done anything wrong per se. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't get talked to, because I've seen RVs be pulled over or have people talk to them at a campground. Let me rephrase that. At a Walmart parking lot for staying too long, or whatever the case may be. But with that being said, if you have a really junker looking van, let's say it's a really crappy van that's all beat up and, and all this kind of stuff, that might be a vintage van or whatever, and you got solar and, other stuff, you could be a potential target, because they look at those older rigs and they see, well, if that person came and keep up in the rig and they're living out of it, we don't want that around. Places like, for example, Walmart parking lots, things like that, stores, and so, parking centers, and just anything in general that's considered public parking, they don't want vehicles that look like crap, or that are, all beat up and stuff. They rather have the nice stuff, because it makes them look more prestige. It makes their environment that they own, their land, their property look nicer, and that's what it's all about. It's about having a nice, clean property and blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to having those people who have nicer rigs, nicer vans, nicer RVs, tend to not run into, I would say, law enforcement more often, because there is that, image quality there of what it is that you're looking at, and not you, but you know what I mean, like, of what the police look at, what the public looks at, because it's all about public judgment. And at that point, people just like to put other people down. So I think if you have an older rig, or, a rig that might need some love, or, it doesn't look so pretty, you're probably going to get a knock. And, unfortunately, just the way that it is. Now, when it comes to nomad life, van life, and all this other stuff, there's a lot of other key factors that go into play. I think that no matter what style rig you have, no matter what condition rig you can have a super nice RV, but if you're on someone else's property, and I do mean someone else's property, whether it be in, like a Walmart parking lot, or, I don't know, let's say like an outfitting store of some kind, right? Where they sell like outdoor gear and stuff like that, and you're camping there. If you pull up and you take a bunch of stuff out and lay it on the ground and make around you trashy, or you're, popping out chairs and sitting at a table, no matter how nice your rig is, someone's probably going to say something, because a mass majority of people everybody probably recognizes nomad life, van life, and then especially here in the past few years where it's becoming like a trend, and the whole market for it has just exploded. But more along lines of, well, they recognize it, but they don't either accept it, or maybe they're envious of it, because there are a lot of people that I've talked to that are envious about me being able to do this lifestyle. And there's also people who just have nothing better to do with their time. But with that being said, you just kind of have to, be cautious about where you park. That's why we plan, right? We look at where we're going, what we're going to do, and all that good stuff. Plan your trip out. Also check out the area. Are there already a bunch of other people here? If there's a lot of vans, a lot of RVs and stuff staying during the daytime, and I'm talking like 11 a.m. on, and they're still there in the parking lot, there's a solid chance that they're staying and they're camping there. And the level in which police are going to be contacted, or authorities, or whatever, or something's going to be said, goes up. Now, if it's overnight and you see a bunch of vehicles, usually 99% of the time it's cool just to like stay there with that nation that you're going to be leaving the next morning. And usually you do want to be gone, preferably before the business opens. So, and that could be anywhere between 6 to, I would probably say, around 9 to be up and gone and out of the way. Now, talking about when we are going along and we find, like, say, Walmart, for example, because it's very extremely popular. Everybody camps at Walmart. I've slept at Walmart, not a big deal. As long as you're not pulling out lots of stuff and this and that, it's generally not a problem unless they hardcore enforce it, and they usually have signs posted and or security. I know that where I'm at, they actually, the Walmart that's closest to me, they have a patrol unit that goes around and they're watching. They're kicking people out. Or there's monitoring to see how long you're going to be there. As someone who works with law enforcement on a regular basis, I can tell you that that's generally what they're starting out as, unless they jump the gun. They're just observing and seeing what happens. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But point being said, it doesn't matter what rig you have, minivan, cargo van, RV, trailer, truck, camper, it doesn't matter. If you start pulling stuff out and trying to make the area your own, even if you're just taking stuff out to rearrange something or whatever, you do run the risk of making yourself noticed, and you run the risk of, well, having a friendly chat with either the property owners and or the police. So just be mindful of that. It sucks. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but at the same time, you know, we have to be respectful of the areas in which we camp at. And, you know, that's why we have the rigs we have. So the more covert you can be on your rig, the better. You know, it's kind of obvious at this point, most white vans basically just have this invisible thing that say, I live in my van. Even if there's not anyone living in their van, because, well, that van life has just gotten that big. As an individual, you have rights. Remember that. You, yeah, I'm talking to you.
You. No, not
You, yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, not the person behind you.
Yes? Not you, him.
Well, them too, but
What's your name? Me. Yes, you.
So I'm talking to you.
I am me. He's me.
Too, but I'm talking to you.
Just answer the damn question.
Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Who are you?
I have told you. That is what I just said.
You just said what?
I did not say what. I said you.
That's what I'm asking you.
And you is answering.
Shut up.
You have rights. As long as you have not generally, okay, and you do need to look this up. I am not a lawyer. I am not a police officer. I do work with police officers or state troopers, all that kind of stuff on a regular basis for my job. However, it is extremely important to read up on your laws and city ordinances. Because ultimately, even if you are in public, they may have a city ordinance about something. And as long as you haven't broken any laws, not a whole lot can be done. Again, please consult with local laws, local ordinances, all that kind of stuff. I am not going to sit here and say this and that, and someone do something and someone get arrested. This is for entertainment purposes only, so just take me on my word at this, okay? With that being said, you know, you might be in a state or a city or whatever your ordinance is that you don't have to identify yourself. You know, First Amendment, you know, does protect, you know, your right to speech and everything. But generally, if you haven't committed a crime, if they haven't, you know, if you haven't broken any laws, and the police have to suspect you of an articulate, forget the wording on that, but articulate, meaning where they articulate you of actually committing or seeing you do a crime or catching you in the act of doing something illegal. And generally, you don't have to ID yourself. They can read your license plate, and they generally have that information. My interactions with police officers, I have always been respectful. Even if they've been, you know, unprofessional, that's a nice way of putting it. You know, oh, you are giving me that. Your interaction with them, you got to remember that these individuals deal with the public. You know, instead of seeing it from a narrow view of only you, you know, with, you know, comparing you to them and contributing van life, nomads and everything. Yeah, remember that they deal with the public. And so just being respectful and being just nice to them, even if they're sitting there and they're questioning you and they're, you know, trying to get your ID and why are you here and all this other stuff, just remember that they deal with some really serious stuff. It's really important to show them the respect, because without them, without the laws that we have to govern the land, it would be chaotic. So just keep that in mind. But of course, stand up for yourself. If you haven't broken any laws, you know, you haven't broken any laws. But with that being said, you know, just the big points when it comes to nomad life is, one, to make sure that you know, if you have like a big rig or something like that, stay in places where your rig is probably going to be, you know, welcomed, in a sense of not drawing a lot of attention. You you know, having like a big van with a ton of solar on and all stuff. You go to Walmart, you're just asking for attention. You know, because a lot of people are going to be like, wow, that's a interesting rig, or that's cool. Oh man, you know, like you have to really think about it. You know, having a fancy RV, you know, and parking over at, you know, let's say at a public park, right? People are going to wonder, are they staying the whole time? But also with your rig, again, don't put a lot of stuff out for everybody to see. I don't need to see your battery system. I don't need to see, you know, a person with their septic tank issue thing going on. You know, they don't need to be letting it, you know, their waste out into the parking lot. They're there to prevent those kind of things from happening, because that would definitely ruin it for a lot of us out there that are just traveling, trying to make ends meet and get to the next destination, whatever that might be. If you haven't already checked out Bunny and Beyond's YouTube channel, there should be something on the screen. There'll definitely be something in the description below for you to check out. I don't know why I keep pointing. You guys know where the freaking description and the comment section is. I mean, YouTube's like been around for like whatever, like what, 20 years now, 20 plus years, whatever, something like that, 15 years. I don't know. But it does seem like a lot of properties across the nation are starting to crack down on the whole van life, nomad life stuff. And I haven't been out to the East Coast, but from what I understand and what I've talked to it from a lot of people, is that the East Coast is really tough unless you're to camp out in. Ultimately, the property that you are staying on is not yours. And we have to recognize that it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to someone else who has had it, you know, beautiful parking lot, or even if it's just public parking on a street or in a park. We don't own it. We have to be respectful of that, unless, you know, we own the land that we're on and all that. But just the whole point is to be, you know, respectful, but be cautious. If depending on, you know, whatever rig you may have, think about the spots in which you want to camp out at. You know, don't unload all of your stuff in your vehicle or camp out literally in the parking lot, because you just make yourself more vulnerable or more open to speaking with law enforcement. And above all else, protect yourself, know your rights, check for city ordinances, check for state laws and everything like that regarding nomad life, and you know, your right to be able to stay overnight somewhere, whether it be a rest stop, a private property, parking lot like Walmart, and or, you know, public parking, you know, like at the park or something like that. So anyways, be good to yourselves, and I'll catch every one of you hopefully at the next video. Till next time.